Okay. The big red button has been pushed. Welcome back, everybody. It's the Natives in America podcast with your host, Benjamin Wan, and my co-host that's always here. Got my back in the stories is Sky Anto.
What's up? What's up?
There it is. So,
how we doing?
How we doing? How are we doing, really? Like, how are we doing, people?
What's on the grid?
I'm gonna start it off fairly quickly. This time I actually came up with a subject. They might have just pulled it out of the air, but tonight we're going to be talking about news. We're going to be talking about the news and
the news.
Yeah, and how it's. I really don't know what we're going to wind up calling this thing, but like, I want to talk about how the news has changed. How's that sound? Does that?
Yeah. I mean, how has it changed?
Tell me more. Please elaborate. Okay. So,
tell me some more details.
please. All right. So, I say this all the time. I'm gonna say it again. I watch headlines. Like, every time I hit Google, I go down their news list and CNN. So it's like Google, CNN, and then I don't really sit down and watch like TV news, but whenever I'm sitting down with my folks, they make a habit. Like it's their thing in the evening. They turn on the news, and if I'm in the room, like a lot of times I'll walk out because there's such awfulness going on right now, and like a lot of it's disheartening half the time, you know. But I'm saying news is everywhere. We're getting kind of drowned in it. It's coming from all these different directions, you know. We were talking earlier, and you mentioned YouTube, and I was like, wow. I started really thinking about it. Like, that's not where I would have expected news to come from, or maybe even just ideas that kind of change your worldview. And I think some would even say that, you know, basing your worldview on YouTube channels and theories and maybe like outside news, maybe is what they call it. You know, you're going to be lost. You're going to be coming from nowhere. You're going to be you're basing whatever your life choices are on, you know, misinformation. People are going around, you know, there's a lot of misinformation going on.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we ourselves have been guilty of it at some point. We have enough episodes under our belt now to go.
We're wrong.
Sky must have brought this up. What was it, man? I don't think like that. This must be Sky. That crazy Sky guy, he's out there with his crazy theories. But, so examples. When Vice came out, I mean they got slammed pretty damn bad by a lot of people saying they kind of either cherry picked their news or they've been accused of misinformation. But like, I've always liked their style. Like they kind of give you a whole bunch in a little package, which you know, I kind of felt a few times like, oh, we got these big long episodes of the Natives in America podcast, and you know, sometimes it's hard to swallow. Like, maybe you only got 15 minutes to run down the road, you know, and 2 hours and 15 minutes is on the bill there. So when I watch something like Vice and Vice News, I believe they have like a newsletter, but I usually catch their, like on Instagram, I'll catch their like 15-minute little documentary, And then I was also watching HBO Vice News, where they do a whole like hour and they covered like 2 or 3 stories. And I like it. I like that their people are going there, and it's kind of they're always kind of hunting for a new angle, like kind of a little bit closer, a little bit deeper. And I like that all of their people really get in there, like really, sit down with the people, and they're sharing meals and talking. I guess let's say some real shit. Like, they're really getting in there, and I always appreciated that. Like, the traditional news reporter that I'm used to seeing on the news, the kind of stuff that my parents are watching. It's like I couldn't see one of these people, taking their suit jacket off and sitting down in the mud and talking about, rebel forces in Africa, or, new drugs and alcohol that are coming out, and then some of them are sitting there smoking it. They're like, all right, I'm gonna give it a try, and they're, brewed out on some kind of bathtub wine, and I like that. They're getting in there, they're getting dirty, and so like I'm saying that I don't want to say it's a new breed of news, but like it's a symptom of change. I think that the news is getting a little raw in places, and I really like that. So there's a positive side to this change that I'm talking about, but really what I'm bringing up is the darker side, which is what I'm going to base most of my stuff on. But are you still with me out there, Sky? Like, what do you think? I hear you. I hear you out there.
I mean, it's just your Vice in general, or like Vice is another outlet for news, and the topics are a lot of times maybe not topics that, like the local news, we'll put time into. Maybe I don't know, maybe there'll be a time in our lives where we gotta watch the news. Mm-hmm. But like, right now, I don't think that's our time, but my grandma, she would call the local news the little news, and the world news the big news.
Okay, I said, we're going to watch the little news and the big news?
Yeah, nice. But it was always like, like, a lot of times it is kind of negative, and it does kind of have almost a one-sided, like there's no opinions or no, I don't know. It's just information that gets rolled onto you. But in these documentary series, like, you're kind of getting the information fresh, and it's like almost you're a part of the information. So hearing you talk about like this evolution of news, it's almost like if we want it, we want a certain version of it, because like sometimes those like those certain documentary series, or those, maybe they're not as long, but you'll put a lot of time into watching them if they have your attention. So I guess it's like different strokes for different folks, but
yeah, for sure.
I just think that we're kind of going away from that Ron Burgundy, that handsome guy or that pretty lady.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still there, but there's other people too that are just as good looking, or maybe, I don't know. I think of what was that guy's name that does those documentaries?
There's a bunch. Michael Moore?
Yeah, I think it is Michael Moore. But not about the looks or the appearance.
Mm.
And sometimes it's like the local news. There's, you know, they're dressed to the T. You know, it's very professional, I guess. But I mean, I don't. The Vice docs are professional as well, but I guess like in the sense of like YouTube or like TikTok or just any kind of social media platform, everyone's kind of reporting news, you know. Mm-hmm. Even shit like by chance you see an accident on the road, so you film it and you put it on your on your story or something, or I don't know. It's just, you know, everyone's kind of reporting the news, or reporting their news as far as like, you know, pictures. I don't know. Does it feel like everybody's kind of selling something? Yeah. I mean, not selling something, but like
they've got an agenda. It feels like I like that you put Ron Burgundy on there. Like I was thinking Dan Rathers, you know, like a clean cut with the overcoat and the microphone and just kind of solemn about everything. And yeah, I was trying to think of like what other person could I think of, but like I think he really summed it up with Ron Burgundy. And you covered a lot of subjects here, and I'm going to try to respond to some of them. So yeah, the whole, they got to be pretty, they got to be this, they got to be that. Like, this is the news, like, it's very professional, it's very, you know, this is what your grandparents watch, kind of. Like, they're maintaining an image, and I really feel like, I think we all kind of feel this, like, I want to say a digital shift. Like we're going from like these big faces and big names and, you know, dressed up people to people who are, you know, probably dirty from the night over, and they're in the show and they're just getting the story, and it's like, all right, they're no longer just pointing the camera at this person who's reporting the news, but they're putting it on the subject. And, you know, the cameras are getting smaller, so it's getting easier to bring us there. And all right, so there's that. Like I like that you brought up the imagery, and then you also brought up bias. And I feel like, all right, two things. One is the bias, and the other is kind of clickbait. Mm-hmm. And I'll try and cover them both. So the bias, I feel in general that the big news companies, like, they're all our local channels, you know, 13, 11, 9, 6, maybe 4. You know, all these groups that we're used to seeing, we grew up with. Some of them are still there. A lot of new faces are in there. But like, I feel like I've been betrayed or let down so many times by these conglomerate news outlets that I can't trust them anymore. You know what I mean? Like, you never know if there's something being sold to you. You know, I mentioned cherry picking earlier. It's like they take a look at the story and they go, what's going to get more views? What's going to get more attention? Or what's going on in politics that's going to make this worth watching? How can we scare the shit out of everybody right now? How can we, you know, make people stay home and lock their doors? How can we make people afraid to talk to their neighbors or hug a person? You know, how can we get people to keep their masks on for longer and go out and get vaccinated? There's a lot of pressure being put upon us, and I also often feel like they're guiding us. This bias, they're like, oh, well, we support the Republicans. They're a Republican news outlet. we're going to do this, you know, or Democrats, whatever. It really doesn't matter. They're all kind of in it, you know. They're all. This is probably not the best expression, but they're all sucking on the tit, you know, the teat. They're all getting their pockets lined with money to slant. They slant one way or the other.
Yeah.
And like it's been said all the time. There's this version, that version, and then the truth, and somewhere in between there is where the story is, right? What they're trying to give us, what they're trying to sell us, and So yeah, when I that's why I kind of brought up Vice. Like whenever I'm talking about the larger news outlets, like I feel like they got the agenda, they got a bias, and they got a slant that they really stick to. And if you're watching it, that's the only side of it you're getting. You know, that it's pretty freaking nasty.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by change. Like we're switching over very digital, very quick. Like I mentioned, clickbait. It's like there's this smash and grab for views and likes and follows and, you know, thumbs up. Like while I'm mentioning that, please subscribe and like this video.
Or numbers. We're keeping track of the numbers.
Yeah. And
the numbers equal value.
Yeah.
So if you have a big number, then that obviously means it's valuable.
Obviously, yeah.
The way our minds are working. But
yeah, like at one point it was more about the story and getting the whole truth or the best you can, and now it's more like what's going to get the most views. Like they're playing the they're playing the numbers game with real life stories, and that's pretty disgusting. You know, it's why I have like a general distrust about a lot of things in my life, and a lot of it's news and politics and I guess just trouble across the world. And the thing is, like, you can buy in or not, and the world's going on. The world is bigger than the reservation, bigger than the United States. It's this. You know, it's this ongoing story that, you know, whether you partake or not, whether you participate, it's going on. Which you know, is why you come back to the news or the headlines or like the online page. Like the reason you still glance every now and then is because the world's going on around us. And, and sometimes that's how you find out about it. You know?
I mean, when you first said the news, I immediately thought of and that's what I usually think of when I hear that, like, you know, what happened today or what's happening in this moment we're in now.
Yeah.
But with all these other platforms and, you know, new information coming out, like, news is sometimes something that happened a long time ago, but it's someone else's version of it, or, you know, what they saw, or, you know, their 2 cents on the situation. I think that's why documentaries are kind of cool. I mean, kind of going back to sort of like going behind the stage and seeing, you know, what's actually going on. But yeah, I feels like I stopped watching the main news, but if something does hit, or it feels like if something does happen, then I have to watch it. Like, but honestly, nothing. I mean, it feels like the craziness went up, but yet I'm not really paying attention.
On purpose too, right? Like,
well, I mean, I guess like that. Like, we could stay scared watching the news all day, but like, I can't. I guess that's why I don't watch it. Is 'cause it's like I can't. I can worry about what I have in front of me just as much. Or, I don't need to put any time into that. I mean, I can't do nothing about it. So,
yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's just like I can only handle what's in front of me. So, I don't know, not so much why do I need to know that information, but it's just like, I'd rather not have the experience of whatever it's going to give me and just go on about my day with what I got to do. But that doesn't mean I don't get information or stuff from other people. So it's just weird because it's like I get a lot of information from TikTok or YouTube and Instagram, but it's not really the news that is providing my information for me. But I don't know. I do get a feeling of when I watch it, though. Like,
yeah, definitely. I like that the news is you're avoiding the news and somehow it still finds you. That's an interesting point. And about what you're about to talk about, the feeling you get, like way back when, and I'm sure I've brought this up before. Way back when, in one of my earlier psychology classes, we talked about the development of acids in your body from real-life reactions. Are real-life reactions as a result of how you feel? So, like, if you're feeling bad about yourself, you're having mental issues or depression, whatever, like, if you're feeling on the more negative side, your body produces what's called, it produces acids, but the acids basically create what people call free radicals. And it's basically like peroxide. You pour peroxide on a wound and it starts bubbling when it starts reacting with all these, foreign contaminants. And so when you start feeling bad about yourself or the world or, some news report, it can give you true, real-life sickness and illness in your body as a result.
Yeah.
Which is a really good reason to avoid feeling that way about the news and, possibly avoiding it. Not really listening to it because it gives you that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think of Sports Center is okay, but like CNN or, I haven't watched those channels in a while, but sometimes it would just be repeating the same stuff over and over.
Yeah.
And it would just be kind of like you could catch anybody and suddenly you're kind of going for the ride. And all the info, whatever's happening, kind of almost like when the rioters or when they attacked the Capitol. That was kind of hard not to watch the news,
Yeah. I was watching reports live when it was happening on the 6th. I think that's how I first got hooked up with CNN. I got their app just to watch that because they had live coverage, and ever since then, I get notifications and all these like what's going on in the courts, what's going on in the White House, what's going on in the the Senate, the House of Representatives, and it draws you back in. I wanted to bring up that before. Well, two things. I want to bring up Standing Rock, and then I want to bring up guns, and then I want to talk about Standing Rock. So guns, there was legislation being put out, in the House of Representatives. They were all voting on it. And there's, both sides, the Second Amendment rights, and then there's people like, people who have been victimized by guns, or people that feel like, we all have too many guns, whatever it is. When the legislation was going into the House to get voted on, everybody's supposed to put their 2 cents in, I saw the news kind of change, and suddenly that's all they were reporting on, were all these, like, violent crimes being carried out with guns.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, those crimes are going on all the time, but when it's not hot information, they're not reporting it.
Yeah, it's like convenient, or when it...
Yeah, it's like they want to paint a picture, so then that's what they're showing us. And like you said, again and again and again, they're showing it all day long. One evening segment turns into the night segment, and they're reporting the same thing. And then you change the channel, and they tell you the same story but a different slant. Like, I kind of wanted to bring up Standing Rock because what was crazy, and this kind of goes along the line of how the news is changing and it's kind of evolving. It was during Standing Rock that I think maybe, I want to say I only saw one like 5-minute report on Standing Rock on one of the major channels. I didn't see it on all of them. I saw it like on one channel, and for the life of me, I couldn't even tell you which channel it was. But I remember one thing came on, and like we had Linus out there, so like I was getting little reports back and forth from him, and I was watching wherever I could. And what was interesting was, if you were watching the TV, you would have no idea what was going on over there. You maybe get one 5-minute segment on it, and it's from somebody who's not there, or probably cares less about the subject matter than people actually watching the news. And what had changed in that case was it wouldn't have been covered. It wasn't being covered. All these things were going on with blind eyes turned, like behind closed doors, basically. And the only way I could see it was on people's cell phones, turning it into YouTube and TikTok. They were putting out videos, civilians, as the news people would call it, people on the streets capturing with their fucking phone camera what's really going on. And it was sickening to see, to know that such harsh things were going on. People were, in freaking the coldest, one of the coldest places in the country, and they were being sprayed with water. It was like all these atrocities. They just kept pushing and pushing, and it was like the unstoppable force hitting the immovable object, and people were being hurt over it. And nobody was freaking covering it except for people on the ground, people that were there. And that was just another thing that made me feel like the news was full of shit. Like, why won't they cover this? This is huge. And I kind of feel like nobody wants to talk about it. Like, in general, across the United States. And I think Amy even said it once when she was addressing the United Nations. I think she said something along the lines of they could give a shit whether we're here or not. As she put it out there, and a bunch of people reacted. They were like, from smaller countries that were going on and facing the same type of difficulty with being heard and put out in front of the world. No spotlight was being put on it. And I think people just didn't have the stomach for it. Like, it was almost like it was old hat. Like, that's not worth covering. Or, nobody wants to hear the poor, the poor Indian man's story. It's been done, it's been heard, it's been played out. And people didn't have the stomach to watch it on the news. or they just didn't care enough to cover this real life this real life struggle. And I brought this up before too. There was this really well thought out speech given by this kid, and that was another thing. It was like this kid was providing this information, and it came to me through like Instagram. I think it was Instagram, and it was this kid like talking to the people at large, saying like, hey, you know, the battle's going on here at this pipeline, and it's going on our land where we had all these treaties written out with the United States and Canada. First Nations were having these agreements, and they're being broken, these treaties. But at the same time, he also told, you know, everybody's like, anybody who's down south of us where this water goes, it's going to affect you too. This is your water too. It doesn't just affect us, it affects everybody downriver. Mm-hmm. And I thought like, wow, it was a very open-minded, clear, well thought out argument that, you know, just might, maybe probably not, but just might open the eyes to the general public. Like, hey, this isn't just their fight, it's all of ours. And I really thought that was cool. And it was a kid, like, I swear, it had to have been under 20. A kid talking like a news reporter on probably somebody's cell phone, maybe a camera, but because it was so clear. But it was like, man, what a great thing that they did there. And I found it on Instagram. You know, it wasn't on CNN. It wasn't on, you know, CBS or whatever. Any of the big guys.
Yeah. So
maybe it fell on deaf ears. I don't know. There was, you know, probably 1 million views, maybe more, maybe just hundreds of thousands, but it was viewed up. And that I feel like that's just another sign of the time of change, like what's going on here.
Well,
it's like the police with their little body cams. We're being tied. I mean, you know, these body cams disappear all the time. Or, you know, the footage is shut off at an appropriate moment. But what I'm saying is we're getting quicker, faster access, where we're no longer required to go wait until Dan Rather says something.
Oh, yeah. It's just kind of in the moment sometimes.
Yeah, live.
And it's not always that, I remember even with the riots, with the George Floyd, like, people just posting, you know, what they were seeing. It wasn't even them, like, talking or like, you know, trying to, like, be a news reporter, but it was just sort of like, it was some form of reporting, you know? You know, it was just kind of, you know, the faces of the cops and, you know, the people just kind of going, I don't want to say going crazy, but it was like, madness of, like, you didn't know what was happening, but yet you knew what was happening. But that was only because someone was there recording it.
Yeah. Seemed like they were risking their lives just by capturing it too. And think if they didn't too. Like if it wasn't caught on tape. Would there have been such a big reaction, you know? Would there have been such a big story? Would his face be painted everywhere and his name yelled
I don't think so.
The riots?
I don't think so, because, like, I mean, I think that's where maybe the news had a lot more value, because there's only a few of them giving out news, but
yeah.
You know, with the smartphone, you know, we're all news reporters sometimes. So, like something like that, like a riot, it's almost like the news has no. I mean, they have some control on what they say. I mean, again, that's where there's like those terms. Those phrases that we were hearing, I mean, there were rioters, there were looters, there were some protesters, I mean, there was, like, angry mobs, you know, like, all those different words, they can kind of describe the same person, you know? Yeah. So, I mean, they have that sort of ability to detail the story, but, like, you know, with everything going on, if something that big going on, or, you know, everybody's filming it and you're seeing real life footage of, it's almost like we went from believing the news more to knowing, hey, the news is lying, but yet this footage kind of looks somewhat real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess, why do we think we know what is real and what is possibly fake? You know what I mean? Like, how do we, are we just going off of what we want to
believe? Well, you find the news you were looking for, you just keep watching it. Yeah, that was brought up to me before about another group. They're like a nightly news, and I think they only do it like once a week. But it was brought up, the way it was, my mom was describing it. She's like, oh, these guys seem to get both sides of the story up. They bring somebody with one opinion on, and they bring somebody of the other opinion. And then they really don't pull punches when they ask the questions. They really go for it. And she said, well, this feels like real news. You know, that was I guess it's time to bring that up, or you already brought it up. You were talking about not knowing if it's real what you're watching. Because there's so many other sides shown. You know, whenever there's a courtroom hearing, even with video of these guys, you know, basically committing murder, they were still pleading their case, like they were completely within the right, you know, within their rights, as you know, their duties, performing their duties according to the letter of the law. So yeah. I'm saying, like, it's like you can tell both stories. There are two different versions, and then somewhere in the middle there's the truth. And you would think, you know, with video where we can all see it, like I struggled the hell, like really bad watching that. Like both mentally, spiritually, and medically, like it was hurting me to watch, and it already happened, you know, it already had happened. And maybe that's another point here is that if it's not filmed, maybe it's like it never happened. Which is kind of another crazy aspect of this. Like now we need to see the video. It's like, well, where's the video? If I don't see a video, did it really happen?
Yeah.
It's hearsay. It's fake news.
Well, that's the fake news when I feel like when Trump was saying that a lot, it was almost like it just sort of like watered down like the integrity of the news is like it's like suddenly they're fake, you know, like if they're saying something that made him look like a bad guy, then it was a fake.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's fake. You know, so.
Obviously that was fake news.
So I mean, if you're saying that to everything, then it's almost like, then what is real news? You know, if something you don't want to hear is
fake. Yeah.
If
it doesn't support your opinion.
Yeah, I like that, yeah.
Then you could dismiss it as fake news. Oh, that's obviously fake.
Well, so, damn, I remember, I don't see these out no more, but I do see them, I mean, similarities on the internet. But, like, you remember tablets, I remember my grandma used to buy tablets, like, in the 90s. And it would just be, like, these celebrities and these weird stories, like...
Yeah.
I mean, they were interesting, but, like, I don't think... Like, I knew they were fake, but yet it was still something, like, almost had more valuable than the truth.
It had an entertainment value to it.
Yeah.
I loved how. Whoops, I'm getting close to my mic. I loved how the Men in Black were like, these are the hot sheets.
Oh yeah. But there would be wild stuff like that, like.
Yeah.
So
an alien ate my husband's skin and is wearing it like a suit. Or like the Bat Boy, a boy that was born as a bat. Partially he was bat, half man, half bat. That was a big one. Or like the pregnant man.
But do you know? I mean, do you see these kind of stories, like fake stories online?
Oh yeah, man. I almost went down the rabbit hole on the whole flat Earth. That drove me crazy. Like, drove me crazy. I was like, oh my God. We're going back in time here. We're going back. We're no longer going forward. We're going back. Like, the way... Like everybody goes, oh, well, look at the pictures from space. And they're like, well, they got the right angle where you can't see the flatness. And
well, I don't think we're in a perfect round globe.
Oh, no.
So I think there's some flatness to our shape. But, yeah, I don't know if we're completely flat. But I'm always willing to hear people's theories on that. But
jeez. Yeah.
I think it's more of just sort of not believing everything you've been told.
Yeah.
So,
pick and choose seems to be the way to go.
What about newspapers?
Well, they still exist, if that's what you're asking.
They still exist, but they're a form of the news, right?
Yeah. An older form, yeah.
I mean... they kind of have to adapt to the internet and stuff, but
yeah, they've gone digital themselves.
Yeah, I think they're still. Well, that's why I brought it up, because, like, in my head, I always consider, like, not to say all the other ones are fake, but like New York Times. A lot of people read that and go there for information, so I would consider that a legit source to get information from.
Mm.
But I don't know why. I mean, that's just what I want to believe. Who's to say it's all BS, you know?
Yeah. So what's interesting about that? This is just like a tidbit. You just said, all right, it's probably a legit source because so many people like pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That was where you're going.
Yeah.
I was watching this crime channel. It was 360 crime or something. It was like all day long they have crime on TV. And there was this documentary series. I think it was called A Step Further or so. That was the general idea of their title. It was like I think it was a look beyond the story, I think is what they were calling it. So they were naming off all these titles like the O.J. Simpson trial, and one of them brought up the Haley, you know that Haley's Comet group where they all drank the Kool-Aid?
Mm.
At one point they mentioned that it was about 900 people that did it.
Oh.
And I gasped. I was like, what? Like, what? Like, I remember watching the news and seeing that, and just seeing like their sneakers, all their matching outfits, and they're all in bunks and they're all covered up.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and they're like all wearing Adidas and tracksuits and all this, and I don't know if it was Adidas. Sorry, Adidas, if it wasn't. But they just said, like, it was just a snippet on the TV, but it said 900 people died in that story. And my first thought was like, first of all, I was like, I never knew it was that many. And second of all, I was like, this man and probably his cronies, whoever, they convinced 900 people to kill themselves. And that was like, man, that he was a source of what I would say is bad information. But it was like along those lines, you were saying, oh, well, everybody reads the New York Times. And I kind of think about it in those terms. It's like, man, if you got the wrong person leading people, but you have everybody listening to it, how many more people does it harm? And in a way, like that goes on other levels with other stories. Like, they're affecting mass quantities of people. And that's the thing about going digital in this digital age we live in, the internet. It's like almost everybody has complete access to the internet. And those that do, we're being sprayed with all this news or sources of information. Some good, some bad, some completely BS, but just might be a little believable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was
one strand of truth.
Yeah.
One BS.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess anyone could tell the news. I guess it's just a matter of the information you're sharing. Is it something that, not so much what we want to know, but how do we feel after we know it? I think that's sort of the question, because watching some of these news shows, you do kind of feel some type of way, depending on maybe which one you're watching.
Yeah.
What they're talking about. But yeah, I think I think that, like, too, like, I remember when I was, like, in, I don't know what grade I was in. Maybe, like, 4th grade or 5th grade, but a friend, he invited me to his house, and his mom spoke English, but their dad was like fluent. They were all fluent Spanish speakers, but like, he didn't really talk that much English, so they'll be watching, the like Spanish channels. So
yeah.
I wouldn't know what they were talking about. I'll be sitting there watching with them, but a lot of times I wouldn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
I got a general idea of just the pictures, but like, well, it was always just interesting because, I don't know, the style of, even this, I don't know what it is about the channels like Telemundo or Univision. Like, I don't know if it's just the camera they're using, or, but there's a difference. I don't know.
Where are you going with this?
I'm just saying. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm saying.
You brought up language.
The language is. I don't know if the language makes it look different, but you're getting presented the news, and it's not in English.
Yeah.
But it just always felt like they're approaching it differently. But again, maybe it's because I didn't know what was being said.
I
would always get freaked out by even the shows.
Yeah.
It almost seemed like their soap operas were shorter. I don't know. I watched a lot of Telemundo, but I never knew what was going on. I knew a little.
I remember, I want to say I was probably 10 or 12 maybe. Try to think how it doesn't matter. I went to Rocky Point with Juan and his family, and they, we were in Rocky Point, and I was watching TV, Mexican TV. I was sitting there, and like everything I watched, like it was really hard to follow, like you said. But what was interesting is like they still name people's names. I don't know if you even call it English, but it was like they'd be speaking Spanish, and then they drop somebody's name, and then I'm like, oh, that's what they're talking about. And like, or they'll throw a picture up there, and it's like, oh, they're talking about something like that. Like, what I don't know what's happening. There was a language barrier. I really don't know where you're going with this.
I don't know where I'm going either, but I'm just saying. I knew information was being shared, but I just didn't know how it was being shared in Spanish, and then it being on a whole different set where, normally I'll be watching news in English and I would know the sets, but the Spanish shows or the Mexicans, I don't know what you call it, but it would just be. I would just be confused because, again, I didn't know what was being said, but then I'm like, I never seen this place before. I mean, it's a different setting.
Felt like a different energy too. like they're like the Spanish language, the Mexican language. It's faster. It's almost got like an entirely different tempo. So when you got the news read to you, it was at that different tempo too. Very, very fast and in your face, and like the radio stations, their disc jockeys are like, "Ooh," you know, like this high energy, super fast talking, and then they really stress the word like "saldo," like just that alone, the energy, you know, we feel it, you hear it with your body and your senses, and it changes it a little bit, you know, just that little bit.
Yeah.
And it feels very foreign, too. Like, when you, like you said, you're used to the sets, you're used to what you're seeing, and then suddenly you're seeing it from another country, and it's bizarre. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn it, I had another subject to go to here. I'm trying to recall it back. Don't get old, people. This is just what happens. You get old, and then suddenly the connections disappear.
We'll be back.
Technical difficulties.
Go to commercial. Go to commercial.
Doing it again.
Well, speaking of commercials, I think that's a big.
Oh, that was another point I wanted to bring up too. Yeah,
that's a big part of the.
Jesus.
When you said the teach, yeah.
Yeah. You know what I've noticed a lot lately in the, like I'll be in my email or maybe on Google, and they're obviously reading my location on my phone. They're obviously like mining. They call it data mining. Everything you do, they're kind of tracking to try to build a profile of who you are. And it drives me crazy, but at the same time, kind of makes me laugh. Is when they're like, it'll be an advertisement, and it'll read like a headline. I'll be reading like an article on Google, and they'll be advertising at the same time, and it looks like you're going to be jumping to another related story. But then you read it, and it reads like a title, and then in the bottom is like, yeah, so, you know, when you're worried about your life in Tucson, out there in Sells, Arizona, you know, it locates you. It's like geolocating me and saying, you know, it's trying to relate, like, hey, if you need solar and you're in the right location in Tucson, in Sells, Arizona, you know, click here, come get here and get your free solar panels in Sells, Arizona. I'll be in Coalfields, but it'll be locating me with a zip code. And the whole while, like I said, they're data mining us, and it drives me kind of nuts. Like everything's being funded. Like they do it under the guise of being free, while at the same time they're making shit tons of money on just your data alone. I think Facebook and Google were kind of one of the first ones to really discover that was worth money. Maybe it was just Facebook to begin with, but it was like it was kind of overlooked. Like we all agreed to it. You know, you don't read the fine print, you don't read the terms and conditions and the privacy policy. You just click OK. And suddenly you're a party to this nasty little circle that they got going on, this little circle jerk they got, making money hand over fist.
Yeah. I see that too with articles where there's almost like links in between the article. And a lot of times the article that's in those links says something you're probably kind of interested in. It's almost, I get confused sometimes, where I'm like, well, what about the story I'm reading? Like, I almost gotta tell my brain, like, you gotta finish this story first before you go to the next story. But like, I mean, I'm just sort of, I'm being overloaded with these. They're not even choices. They're just kind of like, well, they're choices, but like, it just feels like, does this computer know me, or is this Google really, applying that research on me to make me feel this way, or make me, like my phone, I was like, damn, my phone is on point these past couple of days, just because everything I want to find is there. And I didn't mean for it to be like that. But sometimes it feels like that. I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's...
I don't know, man. It's getting kind of crazy. Another point, like to why I wanted to do this subject. Well, I'll kind of add on to what you were saying about getting lost in the links and going on to other stories. What I've been finding a lot lately in the freely available articles on Google is they're advertising so much that you can't even find the next page of your article. It's like buried in pop-ups. What really drives me crazy is when they show you the next page button and you go to press it and it moves up like a centimeter. So then you're pushing an advertisement. And they do it on purpose. Like it's on purpose. And they get me all the time. Sometimes like they'll get me with their clickbait. They got me with their advertising title. It'll say something like 65 million year old skeleton changes the history because of this new person that's newly discovered. Yeah. Follow this story and we'll tell you all about it. And I'm like, cool. And I start reading it and they go real heavy in the background and they stay really vague. And then you're like, all right, well, just show me this fucking skeleton you promised. So you keep going to the next page. And then they're like, well, wait until you hear it. Just stick with us, and as long as and they'll do it like 5 pages in and still not show you or tell you a damn thing. But they're like, but wait until you see it. And after a while, I'm like, man, fuck you, fuck this story. I'm done. I click off angry. I press that X fast and hard, like feel kind of good, like shutting them off, like, all right, you just lost my business, buddy. Like, I'm sick of this. I've lost total interest in this marvel of history, this breaking news, because you're smashing me with frickin', you're inundating me with advertising that has nothing to do with me, or the story I first came here for. That I think that's a huge change that's been going on. Change in the news.
What's that?
Well, it's money driven.
Oh.
Well, I think I brought up capitalism when we were talking about what the topic was.
Yeah, you said news and capitalism.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about the slants. And I feel like it was just like politics, but like we're talking about the news, so I'm going to stick with it. Is like they receive money to slant these different directions too. Like it's not just their opinion. Like everybody slams Fox News. They're like, oh, they're really left wing or right wing. I think they call it right wing. I think left wing is like the lighthearted people, as they say, and it's money. They're getting led towards this direction, and they're taking us along for the ride because it makes money. And what drives me nuts is it's never satisfied. They're never making enough money. They're like, all right, we figured out this new way to make money, so we're just going to throw everything we have in it so that we can make more money. And when they do make more money, it's like, well, that was great. We made a shit ton of money, but let's try and make a shit ton more than we did last year. And because they call that success, it's like, all right, they successfully brought in so many viewers, which was worth so many dollars. And then because that was successful, it wasn't just enough to be successful. They got to outdo themselves next year. And then it's just this long, hard drive of outdoing themselves the previous year, or their previous quarter. And when you do that, like that's heavy capitalism right there, where it's like, all right, how much money can I make, and what do I got to do to get it? And a lot of times the result is this heavy slant, like I was talking about. There's this lean that they're doing. They're guiding us to believe something because they're getting paid to do it, or it makes them more money or more successful to lean this way. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing, like I was saying about the legislation and guns. It's like they weren't reporting that until this legislation came around, and suddenly that's all you saw on the news. Like another version of that, which I was hearing about, that girl that went missing. She got killed by her dude. What I started seeing a lot on Instagram and I think there was TikTok as well, but like there were a lot of people, including Native women, that were calling out the news outlets, like hey, like we've been having missing people for years and nobody gives a shit about them, and then suddenly this young white girl gets kidnapped or possibly murdered, and now that's huge news. Suddenly it's all over the place. But like, what about us? Is kind of what they were saying. Like, wait a minute, this has been going on this whole time, and we haven't gotten one camera, 1 minute in the spotlight to shine light on this subject. And I think the news has become more and more incredulous. They've lost their credibility in the pursuit of the almighty dollar. And when your news outlet is being bought, or when they're slanting super hard, they're no longer your news outlet. They're no longer a trusted source. And I think that's what's kind of changing or morphing the news now, is like so many of us in general distrust the major sources because they've leaned so hard for so long, and maybe even flip-flopped over the years on their approach and the side they've taken. And so after a while, like you said, what can you do about it? Like earlier, like you kind of feel hopeless, and you start like you just stop listening to them. So then you start seeking your news or your information elsewhere. And then a lot of people decry it's unregulated. It comes from wherever, and it's like, well, that's kind of the price we're paying in hopes of finding somebody we can trust. And I think that's why we're all getting so confused and misinformed, is because we're, it's the outlets that are saying, oh, you guys are being misinformed. It's the platforms that are controlling information. They're like, canceling people, and they're blocking people's accounts for, giving out misinformation. But I always think, like, who's to judge that as misinformation? Like, it's creating this, like, us against them. I guess it's always been there.
Mm.
But, I just feel like every year it gets worse. It gets that much more slanted and that much more uneven, that a lot of us in general are running around trying to find our own source or our own information or somebody that we just might trust, whether it's like, oh, a Dan Rather face, a Ron Burgundy. Oh, I trust Ron Burgundy to give me the news, or Dan Rather. If it's not Dan Rather, I'm not going to trust it. Or the people at Vice, like I like them. They got slammed pretty hard, but I do like their news, so I enjoy watching their show, their program. And I feel like that's probably the hardest problem here. The real problem is that we're so disenfranchised with the status quo, or with the all important news station, that we're left searching. We're pulling away from the mainland and going out into the fray, out into the white noise, and trying to find somebody we can trust. And I really doubt we even find it, or we're still looking. Like I said, I'm jumping from one outlet to the other and just following notifications and titles and looking for stuff that I find interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there's something hugely wrong with that. I just think that we're all kind of put in this dangerous situation where, and I do mean dangerous. There is misinformation out there, but it's kind of like we're the same people who are crying about people being misinformed are also the reason why people are looking into all these other outlets.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I there's so many different ways and different channels. But not channels, but I guess personalities types, and maybe that's why we have all these options now. It's just we all want news, but we want it a certain way.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, like you said, like sometimes it is horrible. We just want to leave it. But like, I remember it always seemed like there was always that news channel that, like, not news channel, but it seemed like websites were the ones that were keeping it real. And the news was just kind of sugarcoating everything to make you feel either safe or scared.
Yeah.
But it was like they weren't telling you the whole story.
Yeah.
So I remember like these websites where, like, we're a news site too, but we're we're not on TV, or we're not sharing the stories that everyone else is sharing.
Yeah.
So it feels like we have more choices.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of news we want, or whether we want it or not. But yeah, I just think news is anything now. News is old information. News is even like this now, podcasting. Like.
Whoa, buddy. Whoa.
Some people it's news to some people that are listening. Like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Or I'm even listening to other people's podcasts and getting information to that way. It's like that's kind of still the news.
Yeah.
So it feels like the news has changed from when we were young.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask you this?
No, we can't.
No. Okay. Moving on.
What's up?
Have you seen anything that is kind of alarming to you? Like maybe something that was just brushed over, just lightly reported, and then they moved on with the story, and it was just something that kind of captured your attention and was maybe a little alarming, but it's like, why aren't we covering that? Have you seen anything like that lately? Like I got an example, but I'm asking you.
Well, of course, the wall.
What have you heard lately?
I mean, I haven't heard nothing, but I think that's another part of it where I don't know. We're almost trying to like the news. That traditional news channel is almost trying to uphold this American. Like we can share we can share not so great information, but it's almost a limit, you know? Or like even stuff that's positive. I mean, they're not. I think that's where I was kind of like maybe somebody graduating, you know, or somebody getting their PhD, like the news ain't reporting on any of that kind of stuff. Like it's not.
Yeah.
Like, that's not important information, you know. And maybe in that one person in their life, yeah, but like, it feels like the news doesn't go that far into. I mean, maybe again if it kind of falls into their lap, but like it doesn't seem like we're looking out for the little guy. And even when the little guy is doing something big.
Positive too.
Yeah, exactly. But then again too, like kind of going off of the daytime TV is like we're, I don't know if it's naturally or just maybe how we're raised, but we kind of do like the drama. And I mean, I'm not to say we watch the news just to hear some negative shit, but like there is a level of action that we're, I don't want to say expecting, like, have you ever watched the news and was like, oh, everything's okay, you know? It's never...
Fuck.
There's never that resolve. It's always kind of like, stay tuned, you know, we're coming back, and we'll see you tomorrow because something else is going to happen, and...
Yeah.
It's this weird anticipation.
I love how they go, there's something in your fridge that could be killing you right now. But stay tuned till later when we tell you about it. Come back to us at 5 o'clock when we tell you that what's killing you in your fridge. And it's like, motherfucker, if there's something in there, tell me now. Yeah.
No, it's like, but before that, let's hear from our weather.
Yeah. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, I think the weather is the only thing that every now and then makes me go, oh, it's okay. It's like when they project a nice, cool week. That's like all I got to go on in the whole report. It's like, oh my God, that's the only good news on the news right now. It's quite possibly just the weather.
I was going to say, but because
what were you going to say?
No, like out here on the res, during the monsoon season, you know, you kind of got to be looking out for it doesn't hurt you to look at the weather just because, hey, they could be predicting, a big storm or something. So, just for the washes and stuff. So you're kind of, sometimes we look at the app for the weather, and sometimes they're not accurate. Sometimes they're off. Sometimes they're not even. And I know that going into watching the weather, what do you call that segment? Mm-hmm. But I wonder what that does to us when they show you the calendar.
Yeah.
This is your forecast for the weekend.
Yeah.
The pictures they pick. I wonder. Are they just picked randomly, or do they do something to you? Because they don't have to.
What's funny is they can be wrong every time, and we still watch them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If any part of the news has been really consistently fake news, it's the weather. But we still tune in.
I don't know. It's kind of weird you pointing that out, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was always just sports. But that's with the local.
Yeah. So, I got a little tidbit. I wanted to tell it earlier, and I completely spaced it out. I space stuff out a lot, apparently. I mentioned that my folks tune in. They're regulars of the news at 5 o'clock. The evening news. And a lot of times, when it starts coming back on, we're just like, all right, turn it off. They're repeating now. But I keep bringing up how it's changing and kind of morphing into something different. And I keep saying how we've lost our trust, our faith in the news, like the big outlets.
Yeah.
And my mom, she's told me this story a couple of times. She's got stories. One of these days I want to bring her on the podcast here, but one of her first realizations that the news is full of shit, or that the president was full of shit, was and of course she didn't say it that way. I'm paraphrasing here, but you ever see the older war movies, where there's a room full of ladies and they're all on typewriters? They were all serving in the army, but that's where they had them, was in a giant office building, and they're all, writing letters and passing correspondence and typing stuff up. They're receiving something, they got to type it out and then send it off. You ever see that?
Yeah.
My mom, she did that at some point. She was in something like that.
Wow.
And she told me that on the news, the president went on the news, and it had to do about the time of Vietnam. And the president went on the news and said, "We're going to be removing all the troops. We're ending this thing. We're going to get everybody out of there right now. And we have this date set up, and this is when we're going to get everybody out of there. And that's the plan from here on." It's what the guy said on the news, and I swear, anyway, I'm not even gonna go down the line. But what I'm saying is, on the news, the president was saying that, and then in her room in the office where they were sending correspondence, they were writing up orders from the president to send hundreds of thousands of more troops.
Oh.
So it was the same day he was telling the news and the world, and maybe just the U.S., we're removing all our troops. We're getting everybody out. No more. We're not doing this anymore. And then behind closed doors, through my mom and the other ladies that were working there, they were sending out orders to send, thousands more troops out there. So it was like two different stories. There was what was really going on, and then there was what was said on the news. And it was chosen that way. Like for her, she the way she described it was that was her eye-opening moment where she absolutely knew that they were full of shit. And again, I'm paraphrasing. She doesn't really cuss like that. But yeah, it's again. I've said it is disheartening. It's you lose your faith in the sources that maybe we were raised on. Like I remember more so when I had very little control over the remote as a kid. At 5 o'clock the news was on. I didn't always pay attention. Like I find it funny that I've seen a bunch of major stories, like they're historical stories now, but I remember seeing a whole bunch of them, on the news. And a lot of times with my kid brain, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I had no idea. And then years later, I'll see like a documentary or a movie that was made about a story, a true story, and then I see the footage that I remember. I remember seeing it, but it didn't make sense to me. And then years later, it's like, wow, this is what it was. Like Waco, the thing in Waco where they were being called a cult, and the police were saying they're weaponed up like an army in there. We got to go in and get the guns, and really what it was like an enclosed community, and they were all protecting themselves for whatever was going on. They were kind of being a cult, maybe. But I remember seeing the news footage of people on a white building. I guess they were like SWAT, and they were putting like a ladder up on the roof, and then all these dudes were running up on the ladder up on the roof, and then they just climbed in the window and just started shooting in there, and like there was smoke and fire, and people were like coming out the windows, and they were pulling people out. I don't remember how it all ended, and then later I saw a documentary, and I think it was also like a built-up movie, but it was like people were killed, like the children, the women and the children. They went into the middle of the building to hide, and the police they jammed they drove like a tank through the wall, and they punctured the main building with this like. It wasn't like a gun or a turret, but it was like a giant needle. And they'd punch it through the wall and then pump like tear gas in there. And on several previous occasions where they did that, the fire was caused because it was really flammable, and a whole bunch of people died. So there'd be fire and then people died, and that's what happened in Waco. They punched a hole into this like safe house. It was like a panic room. And it's where they sent the women and children, and they punched in there and then basically doused them to death with tear gas. And like I guess under normal circumstances, or maybe the way it was supposed to be used, is non-lethal. But because they were trapped with it, they all died and perished, and then there was a fire and the whole place burned down. But like I always trip when. Like, I remember seeing OJ's Bronco, riding down the highway. I didn't know what the hell it was. I was like, why is the news so interested in this one vehicle? It's just a police chase. I didn't know, who was in the car, or that it was OJ, and I didn't even know who the hell OJ was. And it was like, you saw these big events, and you know now, you know later.
Yeah.
Or like that shootout in California where it was those bank robbers, and they were all suited up in body armor, and they were shooting like these hardcore AKs with giant drums of ammunition on them, and they were out shooting the cops. Like the cops were outgunned, and it ended like at the very end they were just shooting this guy in the face. Like I think he had like an armored like head. I don't know if it was a helmet or what. I think it was just like a hoodie, but it was like Kevlar. And they were just shooting him in the head until he finally dropped in the street. And I remember all the cops laying out there in the street, you know, all gunned down and all this craziness. And I knew nothing about it really except for that it was something I'd never seen before. And like when you kind of think about that along the lines of also wondering if something's real or not. Is this fake news or is this what's really going on? Like, the problem with that is even now you'll never know if it's like the history point, the point in history where everything changes. I don't know where I was going with that, but the point was like news has this power, and it's being wielded by capitalists. I want to say capitalist pigs, but let's not go there. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, these motherfuckers. I guess what I'm getting is that news is very powerful. Imagery is even more powerful than words, or like the newspaper where it's just written down. You know, it's kind of like people going like, oh, the book was better than the movie, and I've heard Joe Rogan like yell out like, no bullshit, like you're sitting there imagining how it is versus actually seeing it in a movie. Like, oh, you can actually see it. It's got to be way better than sitting there going, oh, I'm imagining everything so well. Like, it's better in my head. And I think, and like that's kind of the good thing, and maybe the big change here is that video is so much more readily available now. You know, even our phone cameras are way better than, you know, old school newspaper cameras.
Oh yeah.
So it's
I mean, you can make a documentary on your phone.
Yeah, exactly. High def.
So, I mean, this is a weird episode because we don't really watch the news. It sounds like they're not really fans of the news, but yet news is a pastime of humans, right?
Is it? Like,
I mean, we like to learn the facts about us and each other, and there's always a hot topic, you know, something going on, want to speak about or hear more about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's so many ways to get information now, and you kind of gotta question the motives of where you're getting the information from.
Yeah.
Because it could be just to sell you something.
Damn. Yeah, doesn't that suck? Like you go out looking for the news. It's like, all right now, nobody's putting it on me. I'm just going out to seek it. And you can't just watch the news now. It's like you got to decide whether or not you even believe it. Who the hell is the source of this news? Where is it coming from? Versus just watching the news and being satisfied with that. Like, oh, this is what's really going on. Now we're forced to debate with ourselves whether or not we believe it. It's a really weird thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like someone to talk about it, whether they believe it or not. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes, like even with Corona, like, how many times do we ask, like, you think that's real? You know? Like, you think that's... Like, we're not to say we're unsure, but there's still that And there's enough propaganda. There's enough misinformation. There's enough people that are saying it's not legit. Like there's enough people saying that to where we're still almost like, you believe that? You know, like it's strange, but
very, very strange.
It's almost like we need that interaction to validate what we saw on the screen.
All right. So we're completely aware of this like balancing act that's going on. Do you think it's better now? I'm wrestling with the idea of progress.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it forward progress that we have to question it now? Like, we don't just accept it. Like, hey, take these pills. Sure, girl, I'll do what you're saying. I'm gonna take these pills. Like, they're like, hey, here's the news, and we're questioning it. We're questioning it all. Like me and you, we talk about questioning stuff all the time, and how good it is. Like, would you consider this forward progress that everybody's questioning the news now, or would you think it's like a symptom of how bad the news has gotten? Like, is this a sign of forward progress, or is it a sign of how bad it's gotten that we have to question it now?
Damn, that's a good question. Because on one hand, the power is going back to the individual that has to, again, make that decision. Is this real or is this not real?
Yeah.
But then that could be a problem in itself where somebody that needs to be a sheep, that needs to be led, and now they're given the power to, like, well, you can pretty much believe what you want to believe. So,
yeah.
Watch all the YouTube theory videos you want to watch, and get lost in the TikTok theories about the world being flat. So it's like it's almost like that when we talked about the other episode with the blank slot, like the information you have, like we're just remembering stuff. We're not retaining information, but it's like sometimes somebody might be overloading on information that's going to get them in a harmful situation because they were misinformed. They believed it too much. I don't know.
That's like when I think the president had actually heard of a true story where they were considering doing a special treatment, like a very specialized treatment of a delivery of disinfectants into the system. But the way he described it came off like, hey, go home and drink bleach.
Oh, yeah.
And people died, It was like, hey, take these, I think it was like pool cleaner pills. Some chlorhexidine or something like that, and don't quote me on that. I know I'm saying it wrong, but it was like all these people, they were being told by somebody who's supposed to be like the top authority on the news, the most informed person, they're being told by the top scientists. And he goes, hey, go home. Like, he didn't say it in so many words, but he was like, hey, why don't you drink a little bleach? Why don't we spray a little chemical in our lungs? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And people died. Now, granted, I don't want to badmouth the dead, but I have to say, like, if you believed him and went home and drank Clorox, I don't know, read between the lines, like, come up with your own conclusion here. It's like, if you went home and believed that, like, maybe something was coming your way anyway, you know, like, but what I'm saying is, like, again, misinformation, your source, consider your source. Like I kind of feel like the answer is, oh, it's backwards. Like think about your parents trying to raise you and go, this, you know, parents hope for their children to come up and question things, question authority, and question, you know, the status quo. You want that. You want everybody to question it. But it's kind of like a media frenzy. Like, there's so much information out there that this quest for knowledge can lead you down some bad holes. There's some bad trips. Like misinformation. And in some special cases, like the people who drank that Clorox, it could lead to death. And that's information. Like it's news. It's what people are being informed by. Like I do like the theory of people questioning more. I like how that looks on paper. I like the sound of that. Like, yes, the people are being awoken from a deep slumber. You know, we're no longer have the veil over our eyes. It's been removed. But then, like in thinking about that, I have to consider how bad it's gotten that we have to do that. Like, it wasn't like we were taught better. It was because we were so screwed by the people we trusted. You know, it was like it was so horrible that now we're forced to be this way. It's not like we came upon it through good theory and good information and good teachings. It was, we had to come to this because of how bad it got, or how bad it is. More like it says it's still going on. So like I said, I like the look of it on paper. It looks good. It's like, yeah, citizens are awake and they're thinking for themselves. But, you know, there's pitfalls along the way to this knowledge. It's like you can fall into the wrong crowd or the wrong information and wind up dead. So I guess you could say there's power in that too. Power in the news, like maybe not altogether good power, but it's power nonetheless. It's power over people and information. Kind of too much power for one entity to wield. Like the ring, baby. Like the ring to rule all rings. It's like it's too much for one person to wield.
No one man should have all that power.
Yeah. I love Lord of the Rings. It just came in here. Anyway, so I kind of want to bring up the movie. Well, two things. I wanted to bring up the movie Conspiracy Theories, and then the movie. Like we're always talking about movies, so I kind of wanted to bring a couple up. One was The Nightcrawler. Have you seen that with Jake Gyllenhaal?
No.
All right. Okay. Well, it's all right. The whole thing behind that movie is he's playing this really like go-getting type of guy, like not in the nicest way. He's more of a hustler than anything, but he finds out that people are getting paid to drive around and hunt down news stories. Like if there's a car wreck and they're the first one to show up and film the car wreck and they get the best footage, then they get the best pay from the news outlets. So they're like, hey, I just filmed a 3-car pileup and I got footage of the people getting loaded in the ambulance and I got footage of fire. How much are you going to pay me for it? So they would get paid more for the more gruesome the video.
Yeah.
And so the movie just keeps progressing, like darker and darker, and it was a bit of a timepiece from like earlier times. You know, you get away with a lot more at a crime scene, but it was like this real life. I mean, it's based on real life. There's people that still do it today. They like storm trackers. They're out there chasing it and looking for it and trying to capture it. And so I brought that up because it's like that's kind of what people. It opened my eyes to this world of like money, and it was like money changing hands over blood. It was like they were getting blood on their hands and getting paid for it. It was like they were getting paid for carnage.
Yeah.
So like that's a huge thing that's big now. You know, it's clickbait to call in this horribleness. All right, now I already forgot the other movie I brought up. It was Nightcrawler, and then the other one, dear God. Maybe we're gonna do this early. Conspiracy theory. So in that, all right, have you seen that? Have you seen Conspiracy Theory?
Is that is Matthew McConaughey in that?
No, it's Mel Gibson and Julia Roberts.
Oh,
Julia Roberts? Yeah, it was Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts in that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, anyway, the whole thing is Mel Gibson's playing this guy who's like obsessed with the news. Like he kind of Rain Mans it. Like he goes and gathers all these newspapers. He takes them home and starts connecting the dots. Like he'll read titles and he'll find things that look like they're kind of a fifth page story. Like it's kind of buried in the newspaper. And he'll find it and then he'll connect it to other stories. And the way the movie plays out is sometimes he gets it right. Like he's really obsessed with the government and like how they're pulling off dark underground operations, and nobody believes him. They're just kind of like pushing him off, like, oh, this is bullshit. Like, I don't know where you come up with this crap, but I like reading it, And every now and then he'll get one right, and then they come for him. They come to jack him up because he got one right. He connected the right stories and figured out like a big plot. And then later, I think he also finds out that like, half his audience, his followers, are the government. They're like government entities, and they're tracking what he's putting out there. And whenever they catch him finding the right story connections, they come after him. And like nobody believes him. Julia Roberts doesn't believe him, and then finally it happens, and the whole story flips. But like I bring these two things up to kind of illustrate what I've been seeing in the news. As far as well, we already discussed like the carnage and the clickbait, but I'm bringing up conspiracy theories for what I've been seeing, and I got a little bit of conspiracy theory for you here, if you're interested.
Yeah.
So previous times with Corona, we did predictions. Me and you, I want to say it was a COVID-19 episode from season 1.
Oh, yeah, predictions of that.
Yeah, what was going to come? Like I think it was nearing the end of the year, and we were like, oh well, what's your prediction for this? And I said like this isn't over. That's the one part that sticks in my head, that I kept saying this is not over, and it's not going to end as soon as they say.
Yeah, I remember.
It's totally come true. So I got more for you here. I've closely been watching a growing relationship with China and Russia, and I've been really closely watching titles that include China in there. Like if you pay attention to the moves they're making, like they're kind of making non-public moves, and then they're doing really open moves that kind of appear to be like they're public and very, open, and it seems like on the up and up, but like if you really start doing what I was talking about, like conspiracy theories, where you start connecting the dots. I got another prediction here. Like I think, like like we mentioned this too, was like the cyber attacks where they've been doing ransomware. You know, they take over an important company like a pipeline, or like I think it was like the pipeline that covers the whole East Coast, and when it went down, like there was all this like panic. There was all this panic in the streets and long lines at the gas station, and like it affected the whole East Coast basically. And it was like all right, some random person, they say, in Russia, and I think at the time one of the headlines that came up was that they paid them. You know, for all the talk about not negotiating with terrorists, they fucking paid them. And then, all right, so they say, all right, we had this giant, I think it was like 50 million, 500 million, something crazy. This crazy amount they were held ransom for. And then they paid them. They paid it. There was so much chaos ensuing that they paid them. They're like, we got to get this company, we got to get this pipeline back online. And like we said before, like we're only handling what you see in front of you. So like there weren't long lines here. You know, there wasn't panic. There wasn't this rush to gather gas or like, you know, get shit tons of it. But on the East Coast, it was happening. So it was like we're seeing. I saw another documentary not too long ago, and it was on Netflix, and it was I think they called it like the new weapon or the perfect weapon. And what it was cyber attacks. Like it talked about how we did it to. I think it was like I want to say we messed with somebody's power plant. It was a country that was developing nuclear capabilities, but they had a power plant going, and there was a suspicion that they were developing weapons-grade plutonium, and there was a certain part of the process where they were cooking it, and it had to be cooked just right. If it didn't get cooked right, there'd be, you know, massive problems. There'd be explosions and stuff would go down. And what they did was they slightly changed, you know, by minutes, either minutes or degrees in temperature, little by little, where it was not even really noticed, and then eventually whole system shut down and a lot of stuff went down. And I don't know if anybody died, but it was a cyber attack. And then this movie was showing how it had progressed from there to countries like Iran and I want to say Russia. They were coming after us in the way that supposedly we had started. The United States had started. So it was like they messed with somebody's company, and I think what happened too was a little bit of the code that they had used was still in their system, and the people who owned that company found it and then used it against us. Like it was our own code, and then they turned it around and did it to us like right back. And it's been happening more and more. And like as this pertains back with the news, what I loved was the posturing that happened later. I didn't love it, but it was like I loved how fake it was. How much of a posturing that was going on. What it was they paid this huge ransom, and then later the following headline was, we got millions back. So there was a big number, and it said, all right, let's say $50 million. They paid it, and then when they came back later, they didn't say, we got $50 million back. They said we got millions back. So it was like, okay, how much is that? Like, how much do we actually get back? And I bet you anything, it was very little. It was whatever they could still capture and, you know, freeze and take back. And I bet I bet a lot of the times they still don't even find these people that did it. So, like, as far as, like, change in the world, I feel like that's the new battlefront. And I'm predicting, here's my prediction, that the theory here is conspiracy. As I've been watching anything with China, as they're still continuously developing rockets. They're testing them. I've been seeing a lot of news about them going into the ocean, and they're fighting over this island with Japan, saying, it's their island, and they're like, no, it's our island. If you look at the ancient maps, it's part of us, and they're like, no, it belongs to us, or it was given to us, and like, no, we were born here. There's all these talks, and they've been kind of fighting each other. And the thing is, once the bombs were dropped in Japan, there was an agreement made that Japan would never form another army, and that the United States would step in if they were ever attacked. Now, I think in a weird roundabout way, we're saying, all right, China is our ally. But they've been making moves and pulling this shit, like kind of egging us on, testing the water, pressing on another ally that we made promises with and treaties and all that. And as natives, we know all about treaties and how far those go. But I think we should all be keeping an eye on what's been going on behind closed doors. I think one report popped up, and it said something about China's Navy surpassing ours. Like the amount that they were having, their aircraft carriers, they're making them like super carriers. They're making these really big, huge super carriers, and they're developing a lot of them. Like they're preparing for war. And if I were to make any prediction right now, I've been watching them. I've been watching Russia, and I've been watching the cyber attacks, and I think they're all kind of connected. So what do you think about that?
I think you're paying more attention to that than I am. I mean, because I didn't catch any of that. I mean, I don't. But then I also been closed off, to any deals or negotiations or I guess anything in that regards. But I guess the United States media goes out of their way to uphold this certain kind of narrative. And I think the American confidence is like we're this badass country, and maybe in upcoming years there's going to be some other countries that want to challenge that, or they're just naturally gonna put us in our place.
Yeah.
And I think that was always something that we always knew would happen when we were growing up. Not so much to be a nice person, but to you kind of get what you ask for.
Mm-hmm.
So
the nail that sticks out gets hammered. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe that same old story we keep telling is getting old. The world is big. It's not just our country here or the United States. That's not the only place where it's popping.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we create that facade like we do got it popping 24 hours here. But I don't know. It's like we have to uphold this thing that we portray on in our TV shows or our media. But at some point, it becomes unrealistic and just sort of maybe silly. I don't know. It's almost like we take ourselves too seriously.
Damn.
Upholding that American flag. And then when someone actually comes along and shames us out, you know, it's not just gonna be like we're just gonna get bullied now.
Jeez.
Because we've been bullying everybody this whole time. We need a taste of our own medicine.
Yeah. I think another thing to watch is drones.
Ooh.
I just saw another article, I think it was on China, where they were retrofitting their old planes to become drones. So like all their old fighters, their fighter jets that used to be manned, they're retrofitting them with computers so that they'll be drones.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that if a war were to go on, there'd be a lot more drones this time around. Like yes, it's happening now, but I'm saying like the next World War.
Yeah.
Now maybe I'm sounding paranoid. You know, that's what I thought you were gonna say when I first asked you. Like, what do you think?
No, but that's it's definitely a new type of, I don't know if you call it a weapon, maybe you do, but like it's almost like we can have a war and not even, like, what if there was just a war with drones? It was whoever had the most, top-notch technology were the dominant ones. But it feels like we've never been dominant, but yet, for some reason, we're able to get people that, I mean, even like technology, or, you know, even like the automobile industry, or like, was it Toyota, where in Japan where Toyota's made, but like those companies still come to the United States. Like, you know, what if people don't want to do business with us no more? Or fuck those guys, you know? Yeah. I mean, it's a possibility, right?
Yeah, no. I think the market for America is very well. Again, we use the word capitalism. It's like possessions are a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's like need to have a brand new phone every year. You know, new shoes or the classic shoes, and buying a new car. You know, like you mentioned Toyota, it's like this. I think the market is driving. It's more than just like money changing hands. It's kind of empire building. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people would stop doing business with us, but it will become very expensive. Like that's another thing to follow is this whole talk about shortages and the slowing of the economy because there's a shortage of drivers due to COVID.
Oh yeah,
And then there's tariffs. There was all this talk about putting tariffs on people's economies, like the goods were being shipped here, but for a premium price. Like there was a premium on the price where we were paying so much more, like inflated, that our prices here at home went up, like gas and meat and everyday items that used to cost just like $1 or triple that. And so I don't think people could actually afford to stop merchandising with us and doing business with us. But I think what would happen is the prices will be blown out of proportion.
Yeah.
Like pushed really hard. Because it was like we would do sanctions and tariffs on other countries, namely China again, and they turned around and did it right back to us. And then like whole industries died overnight in our country. Entire industries got shut down, people were fired. And then other ones did better because they were part of the big plan. So it was that's another one to watch right now. Like, as far as theories go, like I really feel like we're being weakened. We're being spread out really thin. And when I say we, I mean this country. It's like there's a lot going on, and like it, as a whole, like just looking at the news, it just looks like a big mess, and they're all unrelated. But I've been watching closely and following, like keywords like Russia and China pop up in my head all the time when I'm reading the articles, like the headlines. And I'm looking for these things because there are real things that we need to watch and keep an eye on. And really just be prepared for any kind of change. Like it's I don't know. It's like training. Like people might. It can go either way. You're either obsessed with something and that's why you're paying so much attention. And then in another way, it's like you're training your eye to see and gauge what you're seeing and reading. And you read it so much that at some point, when the page turns, when something actually changes and starts to happen, you can quickly gauge that something is happening, and you can find it because you've been watching the whole time. I guess the point I'm putting is I guess it's like watching the news. It's a point to watch it, even though we're still kind of sitting here bashing it. It's like, what is CNN showing me? What is Google showing me? Like we said already, consider the source.
Yeah, I was gonna say but like sometimes when I go, well, it's been a while since I've been to Vegas, but like Vegas or we'll go to California or something like. I kind of gotta get a feel of the local news, like, just to kind of see what vibe is out there.
Like in Nevada and California before you go?
No. When I'm there, I'm in the town. Like, I want to see what's going on those stations. I mean, on one of the stations, just to see. I don't know, just to see.
Yeah,
to see.
Yeah, I hear you. That's interesting. And how do you decide if it's real or not?
Well, it's almost like not, I don't know, not caring that it's gonna be either or. I don't know. It's because it's like you're in a different. There's a lot of these times. It's like you're on vacation or it's the weekend and you're away from your normal resides. So to kind of buy into what the local news is saying, it could be interesting. It could be, but like. It's almost like going back to the olden days of just believing whatever you want to, believing whatever they say, and just going for the ride.
Part of me wants to say you're just rolling the dice.
I think so.
Like, who knows? I'm just gonna turn it on. But like another part of me is like, hey, I don't do that, but it sounds like a good idea. Like. To go, it's almost like checking the pulse of the state and the people. Like what's going on here? What kind of difficulties are they facing here specifically? By watching the local news, right? That's what you're talking about, like
yeah.
Local news of California, local news of Las Vegas or Nevada, and just seeing what's going on, what's on the people's minds.
Yeah.
That sounds great. That sounds like a good idea. I don't do that, but I think I will now. And then the other side of me is like, you're just rolling the dice.
Yeah.
Devil may care. It's right news and wrong news or fake news.
Could be bullshit.
Yeah.
But I guess it's like being away from home. You could care less if it's bullshit because you're not going to be there.
Damn. Yeah.
For forever.
Interesting.
So, do we go after news just to fill our minds for the days to come? Or are we sincerely checking the radar because we know something's going to come?
Interesting. Okay. So, my whole conspiracy theory side of me is looking for the connections. I'm checking the pulse of the world, let's say. And at the same time, I really like science breakthroughs. It's like science, technology, and I guess anthropology is what I follow really hard.
Yeah.
Genealogy, anthropology, and geology too. Like I love volcanism, like the volcanoes, natural disasters. I like
hot magma.
Yeah. Like I like following all that.
Yeah.
That's so I'm seeking interest pieces for me to, I guess, feed my mind, feed my curiosity. I go to the news for that, to feed my curiosity, and then on the other side, maybe my paranoid side. I don't know if it's really my scientific side. Like I think what I just described is my science side, my interest, my why I show up for that stuff.
Yeah.
But then my paranoid side is looking and watching carefully what might actually be happening.
Yeah.
This is just throwing another title out. I just saw something about families in Afghanistan that are selling their children because they're starving. they're not eating, and the title said they're starving families are selling their children to make ends meet. Now, I know I just dropped this ugliness just now, but like that was a headline that came up, and I've been tracking that too. Is like how awful it, like how far back they were taken.
Yeah.
Like to watch the planes leaving, like evacuating. It was very reminiscent of Vietnam.
Damn.
But like that's the dark side that I follow, that I track. It's like so I'm sorry, I went real dark and ugly, but like you asked what I go to the news for, so now I gotta ask you, like what keeps you coming back?
What keeps me coming back? I got tickled. But like when Instagram was popping and like the local channels in Tucson, they'll throw the handles of the people hosting the show. What do you call them? What do we call them?
Anchors?
Anchors, yeah. So I just remember a few of them, like being friends with them on Instagram, and then seeing them like kind of seeing their Instagram like page, and then seeing them do the story. It was a little. It kind of felt cool because it was like I was part of not the production, but more of the. Well, I know a little backstory of this guy. I mean, I don't know him fully, but I follow him. He's one of my friends on Instagram. You know what I mean? So I kind of like that idea of like, oh, I know that person, or I kind of know this person a little.
Yeah.
And I think that was like, when we talk about those anchors, that anchormen or whoever was on the TV, like, we kind of did have to like put in that time to finally earn or I guess build a weird rapport.
I thought you were going to admit to like stalking a news reporter.
Oh, no. But
we're friends on Instagram.
Yeah, like crazy. Yeah, no. But that was what I got tickled about, was because I remember, I think it was at Tucson and Meet Yourself, and there was just a bunch of media, and I remember. I think it was Teresa John, or.
Oh yeah.
But she and I saw her and I mean I don't think I was following her at the moment, but it was just kind of like, oh, I know that lady, and then
be careful what you say next. They're listening.
Yeah, so then I just was just like,
sorry,
I saw this. It's a weird little local celebrity thing. I don't know what it is, and to be able to like add them on my Instagram, and then like, oh, if I ever saw them again, I have a talking piece. Hey, I followed you. Because I remember, I think one time I wrote a comment on one of the pictures, and they responded or something. So it was almost like, hey, remember you liked my comment,
All I could think of is Ace Ventura, where he's like, does he call you at home? Okay.
I guess I keep coming back because maybe in my head I'm like, someday I'm gonna cross paths with one of these individuals, and I'm gonna be doing the interviewing.
Oh.
So I don't know.
One day,
I really don't know, man.
One day you're gonna be hitting on Teresa Jr. Young. You'll be like, oh, here I got this podcast.
You should check it out one of these days. You know.
Check it out. What's your Instagram? I'll send it to you right now.
But yeah, I think it's more, you know, kind of having the crush on the weather girl or or whoever. But it was like this is someone in the region, so it's not like it wasn't like MTV where you might not never see the person hosting the show, but like watching the local channel. Like, yeah, I might run into this person one of these days, or something might be going down at the mall, and I'll be right there.
Booyah!
But
you've put a lot of thought into this. I'm kind of.
Well, it was just cool because it was. I mean, maybe that's why I stopped watching the news because
she didn't like your...
No. There's still hope. There's still hope in that. But, like... because, you know, like... We're watching news for cities that are near us. Mm-hmm. It's not like... all the stories are involved on the res. Mm-hmm. So... I mean, we could watch Phoenix News and it would still kind of apply. Just like we could watch Tucson News and it would still kind of apply. But
we have the runner.
But they're not hanging out. The anchor people on those channels aren't hanging out themselves. So I'm like, well, shoot, I'm not gonna watch the show because I'm not going to be on the show. I'm not going to be on there. So maybe that's why I don't watch them now. But every once in a while, I will watch it. Yeah.
So just on top of that, you know who Barbara Grijalva is?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's a name. And I don't know if I mentioned... I think I did. I mentioned tips on our old jobs episode.
Yeah.
I was valeting, and I valeted her car once, and we got to talking. We chopped it up about something about education. Like I think she wasn't there. Like I think it was her own personal car, and I parked it for her and brought it back and. Like, I parked it for her earlier in the day and then came back in the night. Like, it was just like, oh, shit, that's Barbara Grijalva, you know, somebody I know from the news. Yeah. And I just parked the car, I didn't say anything. And then later when I brought her car, like, things had slowed down. I had a minute. And we started talking about, I think it was some sort of, like, educational program, like a meet and greet for local schools that she was attending or something like that. And, So yeah, I had met a celebrity like, but I didn't stalk her like you were doing. But yeah, I totally get it. It was a local celebrity sighting.
Yeah.
And I got to talk to her, and it was interesting. So that was my own little tidbit there. Wow.
I don't know, man. That's cool.
Mind blown.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm about ready to shut this thing down, but I'm curious. Do you have any theories? Anything along those lines?
Theories about
anything. Something with the news, either a prediction of COVID, or I wanted to bring up the House and how they keep putting off this whole giant infrastructure bill, and it keeps getting smaller and smaller.
No, but it was another. What country was it? Was it Malaysia or?
Dude,
I don't know. It was a country that pretty much said because they have good health care, but they're like, if you're not getting the vaccine, then and you get sick, any kind of hospital bills that come out of that is in your pocket. So it's almost like saying, pretty much saying you need to get the vaccine to get any of your costs covered if you do get sick.
Wow. That was pretty hardcore.
I mean, it's just like some countries are I guess, more in control, or really setting that standard high to where.
Yeah.
I mean, because it just seems like there's going to be something that's going to happen where, you can't do this now because you need to be vaccinated, or this is only for people that have been vaccinated, so there's going to be, I feel like they're going to be using that to create leverage for, jobs, just choices. But I don't know, man. Did you hear about these people that died at the Travis Scott concert?
Yeah. I've been watching that, yeah.
I mean,
I don't even know who Travis Scott is.
I mean, it could have been any rapper, but
sounded like a country singer when I first heard the name.
For real, right?
And it turns out he's a rapper. I was like, okay, apparently I don't know anything about anything.
Yeah, well, so anywho, remember there was a year where nobody was going to concerts, nobody was getting lit, no one was getting hyped.
Yeah.
So, and we talked about that with the concerts. I mean, that's where people get lit, that's where people, let loose, that's where, you want to push somebody, or you want to, you want to just let it all hang out, but so it's kind of going back to that. This is a space where everyone's been holding back for years plus, and now they're being told to get lit and rock out and go ape shit, whatever. But it's almost like people forgetting everybody else. Everyone's just concerned about getting their own high or their own buzz to where, man, that sucks, man, because it's I mean, I thought I remember when Dimebag Darrell got shot by the fan, people died at those concerts, but that's not really something that, I mean, it happens, but it's it's not usually what happens. It's usually maybe you get pushed around a little, maybe you do rub against some people, or maybe you do get all sweaty, but you don't die.
Yeah.
And these guys died.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm a little curious to see, because you get all these perspectives on how it all played out and whose fault it was.
Yeah.
And
there's even talk about new regulation on concerts, which sounds like trouble.
I mean, it sounds like kind of like taking away what concerts are supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, when you start putting rules in place, then it's like it's not really the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess my prediction is or maybe not my prediction is what are the new rules gonna be? Because the news does help, but maybe there's something else that can. Because all I see is just, trying to get the people to move in a certain direction.
There was also the talk about Alec Baldwin shooting that lady on the set.
Oh, man, I felt bad that day, dude. I watched 30 Rock.
Yeah.
I've mentioned that plenty of times, but I feel like I hang around Baldwin all day, his characters, and he's a very talented and charismatic guy. So for that to happen to him, just kind of.
Well, another thing about the news is when they hit it heavy and hard like that, it's like swift justice is soon to follow. And maybe it's not real justice, but maybe it's this overblown protectiveness that we're always hinting at. We're always talking about, doing something for the right reason, and then it gets out of hand. There's also talk about regulations of weapons and ammunition on the set. And I think I even heard that The Rock was going to refuse to have real guns on any of the sets of his new movies. That he vowed to use like rubber guns, and then they were just going to add sound effects. And I was like, wait a minute, that's how they're already doing it. And apparently they have blanks, and when things go right, it's supposed to be blanks.
Yeah.
But these guys, I don't know who's to blame or if anybody can be blamed for what happened. But it's quick, fast news. We're aware of it, and regulations soon to follow, almost immediately.
Yeah,
and the news plays a big part of that.
Well, that's happened before, though, too.
Yeah, all the time. Damn near every day.
Oh, with the gun?
The news.
Oh, yeah, of course. I was just saying, thinking that's blank, but it's really for
Fucked up.
Yeah. It almost reminded me of Dick Cheney when he shot that dude. That's what I thought of when I first heard it, because I didn't see someone told me, hey, did you hear about Baldwin? And he shot somebody, and I thought of Dick Cheney, because remember when he shot somebody?
Shot a dude in the face.
Yeah, and I was like, wasn't he president or vice president at the time, too?
Yeah, he was.
And
we all heard about it, and then I don't remember hearing much about it after.
I don't remember any kind of, apology or... or my bad.
But, my bad.
So, when I first kind of heard it, I was just like, well, Dick Cheney shot somebody and it wasn't that bad. But then actually seeing some pictures of Baldwin and then actually kind of hearing the story about it, it was like, damn, man, this is just for entertainment in Hollywood. It's not like, you know, they were doing some scientific research or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Just making a show.
Yeah, I guess that too. Like, in our when we want entertainment, we want as real as it can get. You know.
Damn.
But what is the price? You know.
Yeah.
Where we almost like, well, the audience know that you got a fake gun versus, oh, this is a real gun. This makes the movie so much more impactful. You know what I mean?
I'm going to be watching, and I don't know, I'm just going to be thinking about it now. When they were doing the reports on the set, and they found like, I think it was like 10,000 rounds of ammunition. Some were live and some were blanks. I was just like, God damn, they have enough to like start a little revolution there. Well, maybe not that much, but like they had a lot, much more than I thought you would have on a movie set.
Yeah.
And just to think of that high a number, I was like, man, the more they have, the higher the chance that somebody's going to get accidentally shot. You know, we found out about it after the fact, but it was like, man, it's a wonder it doesn't happen more if that's a regular thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn. All right. Any final words on the news or theories, anything like that?
You said, don't trust anybody. Be your own newscaster.
Yeah, question it all. Yeah.
I don't know. I can't tell you whether you want to watch it or whether you should watch it, but it's always going to be there, I guess. So, I guess what are the consequences of you watching it versus what's going to really happen if you don't even pay attention. So, I don't know, man. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I made any sense.
Yeah, sometimes. I think we all know you're like a stalker now. You know. Yeah, man. You made some good points tonight.
You mean a fan?
You're a super fan. That's what it is. That's what we're gonna call it. You're a super
fanatic.
Fan. Yeah. God damn.
A supporter.
Have you seen that movie, The Fan?
Is it with J-Lo?
No, it's Robert De Niro and Wesley Snipes.
No.
Okay.
Put it up. Movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's basically the story you just told me earlier of following one of your favorite people around. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't following
I know.
I saw them and it was cool.
Okay, I'm getting loopy. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you're still there, we didn't lose you in our blankouts. You're still listening. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Comment.
Yeah,
it
please.
Is up. It is up.
Anytime. Comment away, and I'll answer. Sky will answer.
DM us on our socials.
Yeah.
Hit us up. We want to hear.
Yeah, I want to hear.
Want to hear from you.
Or if you got enough to say, come on the show.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Even better. All right, man. Well,
good night, everybody.
Yeah, man. You guys take care and stay tuned.
Question everything. Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Goodbye.